Lilia was no angel. Lilia was a witch. Even though she was currently hovering between the worlds, watching over her beloved, waiting for the right time to manifest as a silvery, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman and save his life, she was still a witch. Had been for 3,500 years, would be for as long as her soul lived on. She watched awestruck as her beautiful Demetrius flashed into existence, fully formed, fully grown, completely naked. The portal, the opening between dimensions through which he had escaped his underworld prison, was in the cave behind a waterfall. He arrived in the physical world in a blaze of light, crouching on the stones near that cascade. Goddess, he was beautiful. She reached out as if to touch him, but she couldn't. Not yet. He was the same as she remembered him. His body had been reconstituted just as it had once been, since his soul had been ripped away before he died, an unnatural perversion of the order of things. She wouldn't get her own body back when she returned to Earth to join him. Hers had been dashed against the rocky ground from a great height before her own soul had flown free. She would have to manifest a fresh new form when the time came. She'd glimpsed that new form in a vision, so different from her former body that it had shocked her. Oh, but look at him. He rose from his crouched position, looking around, blinking in confusion, and her heart ached. So long. It had been so long. He looked the same, and her heart twisted in her chest with a mingling of joy that she had come this far, was this close to success, and heartache that he was still out of reach. She hadn't seen him since that bloody dawn in 1501 BC in Babylon, when he'd murdered the king in defense of the woman he loved, the king's harem slave, Lilia herself. When the quarters she shared with her two sisters were searched, the tools of their forbidden magic had been found and the three of them sentenced to be sacrificed to Marduk, chief god of the pantheon. Demetrius had been the king's right hand, his friend. She never should have fallen in love with him. The cost had been so high. But she had loved him. She loved him still. The high priest Sindar had been in love too, with the king, or so Lilia had always suspected, and so his wrath had been bitter. He'd used his own magic, dark magic, to strip Demetrius of his soul and banish him to a formless, sensory-deprived existence in an underworld void, just after having Lilia and her sisters thrown from a cliff to the bloody rocks below. But he hadn't counted on the power of the three daughters of Ishtar. They'd refused to cross the veil until they'd taken Demetrius's stolen soul from the twisted holy man and split it among themselves for safekeeping. Indira and Magdalena had reincarnated lifetime after lifetime until the opportunity came to right the ancient wrong, while Lilia had remained in limbo, pulling their strings like a master puppeteer, awakening their memories, making them keep their vow to set things right. The newly reborn Demetrius pushed himself up from the ice-cold ground, rising slowly. Lilia saw the amulet he wore gleaming in the moonlight, and even as he stood there, two other magical tools fell from nowhere and clattered loudly to the rocky ground. He jumped at the sound, then moved closer, picking up the golden chalice, turning it slowly and examining the semi-precious stones embedded in its rim. Then he reached for the blade, looking it over the same way. She wondered what he was feeling. Did he recognize the tools? Did he have any clue as to the power he could wield with them? They'd held parts of his soul for a time, so he must feel a bond to them, a connection, yes?